Born on January 22nd, 1980, Eric Smith was just 13 years old when he took the life of Derek Roby, a 4-year-old boy at a local park. It is said that Smith was frequently bullied for having red hair, and took out the anger he felt towards his bullies on Derek. On August 2nd, 1993, Smith lured Derek into the woods after coming across him on his way to summer camp. Once alone, the 13-year-old strangled Derek before dropping a large rock on his head, even going as far as to take Kool-Aid from the young boy's lunchbox, pour it into his open wounds. He would later confess to his mother about the murder about a week later.
County court is now reconvened.
So you find the defendant guilty of murder in the second degree?
Yes.
Is that unanimous?
Yes.
Smith would ultimately be convicted of second-degree murder and was sentenced to a minimum of 9 years to life in prison. He reportedly remained rather calm throughout the trial, even reading an apology letter to Derek's family on live television.
I know my actions have caused a terrible loss in the Roby family, and for that I'm truly sorry.
In 2021, after being denied parole a total of 10 times and spending 27 years behind bars, Smith would be released from prison on February 1st, 2021. Initially, the town in which he had lived at the time of the murder was fearful he may return, but in a previous parole meeting, Smith had declared that he had no interest in returning and reportedly currently resides over 300 miles away. TJ Lane, however, is someone who will never be able to walk the streets again as a free man. On February 27, 2012, Lane would walk into the cafeteria of Chardon High School in Chardon, Ohio, and open fire, killing 3 students and injuring 3 others, one of which would be permanently paralyzed. Lane was only 17 at the time and was a former student of the high school. It is said that he was likely targeting specific people in his attack, namely Russell King, as well as others who he was said to have ridden the bus with, despite Lane claiming the attack was random. Lane, despite being 17, would be tried as an adult and would ultimately plead guilty and be sentenced to 3 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole. However, it is clear that Lane is anything but remorseful for his actions, as on the day of his sentencing, he would remove his dress shirt to reveal a white t-shirt with the word "killer" written on it. He would also give the middle finger to families of the deceased and say, "This hand that pulled the trigger that killed your sons, now to the memory, all of you." But these would not be the final words of a deranged young man just before he was left in a cell to rot, as Lane would have one last hurrah when he managed to escape from Allen Correctional Institution in Lima, Ohio, alongside 2 other inmates. Lane would remain at large, however, for only around 12 hours, before he was captured again at 1:20 a.m. and transferred to a supermax prison in Youngstown. It is now reported that Lane is only allowed out of his cell for 1 hour every day. 16-year-old Dylan Shoemaker, however, expressed not anger at his verdict, but sadness, when after killing his girlfriend's son Austin, he would be convicted of second-degree murder. Dylan was supposed to be babysitting the child. However, in an effort to get Austin to stop crying, he covered the toddler's face with a pillow and struck him approximately 3 times. Austin would ultimately die as a result. The worst part is, he was only days away from his 2nd birthday when he was killed. But Dylan attempted to show great remorse in court, breaking down and crying when the verdict was read, saying things like he would die for Austin, he loved him, and he didn't mean to kill him.
I didn't mean to hurt him.
However, the court didn't believe him, instead claiming his tears were just to try to convince the jury that he felt bad for his actions. This is emphasized when the court pulls a recording of Dylan talking to his mother, in which he says, "I am a 16-year-old blonde. Probably all I have to do is cry in front of the jury, and they will feel sorry for me." Dylan would be sentenced to 25 years to life, the maximum sentence allowed. This would be lowered to 18 years to life after an appeal, however, meaning in 2031, at the age of 35, Dylan will finally be eligible for parole. In 2018, a mother and her 21-month-old child were attempting to legally cross the street in Tampa, Florida, when they were struck by a Ford Mustang owned and driven by Cameron Herron. Herron was attempting to race another vehicle and driving as fast as 102 miles per hour, despite the fact the posted speed limit was a mere 45 miles per hour. As a result of the crash, even though he would attempt to brake, both the child and the mother would be killed. Cameron had received the Mustang from his parents as a graduation present days prior. Surprisingly, Cameron would see a large amount of support come his way online simply because of the fact that he was attractive. Tweets would be made not only suggesting he deserved a second chance or deserved a light sentence, but even going as far as claiming he was innocent and the entire situation was a setup. One post even tagging the governor of Florida with the hashtag #JusticeForCameron. In the end, tweets and fangirls can only get a person so far, and Herron would be sentenced to 24 years to life behind bars. This footage was captured as he heard his sentence being read, and his eyes visibly get wider in shock. State Attorney Andrew Warren would reportedly call the sentence excessively harsh, but the judge would ultimately choose to uphold the sentence after Herron's defense lawyer tried to appeal. As a result, Cameron will likely be in his early 40s by the time he can start applying for parole. Herron wasn't the only one surprised, however, as in 2015, a 17-year-old boy named Jacob Morgan had a near viral reaction to receiving a sentence of 137 years. Take a look.
Met the burden, so therefore I am going to find that there is probable cause to charge the individual with the down over for General Sessions Court for both charges.
I have to admit that this actually isn't true. Instead, this is actually Morgan's reaction to the preliminary hearing, in which he realizes he will be tried for the murder of his 14-year-old stepbrother. Earlier in the year, Morgan was supposed to be babysitting the child. However, a fire would break out at the Rock Hill home in South Carolina and would claim the life of Morgan's stepbrother. It is still truly unknown just how the fire started, but ultimately the courts and investigators would decide Morgan had started the fire himself and would charge him with involuntary manslaughter, third-degree arson, and unlawful neglect of a child. For these crimes, he would be given not 137 years, like the TikTok that has been viewed over 9 million times claims, but for 15 years to life. I was able to find a petition online claiming to be made by Morgan's mother, begging for her son to be released, claiming his innocence and the fact that the fire was a freak accident. However, this would only get 148 signatures. In 2022, Morgan would be granted parole after serving just about half of his 15-year sentence, and was released from prison at the age of 24, making him the person who served the least amount of time on this list today. Well, that's it for now. Be sure to like the video to help the algorithm, and subscribe to see more content like it. If you enjoyed this video, why not check out this one, where I talk about 5 YouTubers who committed horrible crimes. I'll see you next time.